Eternal gracious Father, we come before thy presence now, thanking you for another day's journey and an opportunity to make Columbus better and to work together as one. We pray for our mayor and all of his staff, and we pray for all these community leaders as you continue to lead them and to guide them in a way that we can be pleasing in your sight. And Lord, we pray that you just continue to strengthen, lead, and guide us. In the name of Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Well, good morning, everyone. In case you don't know who I am, I'm John House, the counselor for District 10 and at-large district. I have the easiest job here because all I have to do is say, welcome. So we're thrilled that you're here as we have a chance to go look at some good things in Columbus and some things that maybe need a little bit of help. I'll be followed by Counselor Judy Thomas.
Thank you, John. We do want to welcome you here this morning. These lights are horrible. Anyway, I'm here to do some introductions and give you the purpose of our session. I'm just going to say that there are a lot of people in the audience that you need to get to know. If you don't know them, introduce yourself. At our meals, sit at a different table. Sit with somebody new so that you can share with them what you are seeing today. Our purpose, as you know, is to take a look at Columbus, the good, bad, and the ugly, what's going on, what's not going on, and we hope that that will lead to some conversations amongst all of us about what do we do next, where do we go next, what do we need to improve on. There's always something to improve on. One of the things I do want to remind you is, would you please turn off the ringer on your cell phone. If everybody in here left your ringer on, would be ringing all day long. We might have a contest to see how many rings, go on during the day. But if you will, turn your cell phones off. Feel free to get up and scoot out if you need to take a phone call, or we know you're going to be texting. With that, it's my privilege to introduce to you the mayor of Columbus, Georgia, who needs little or no introduction to this group. Mayor Henderson is the 13th mayor of the consolidated government when we consolidated in '72, and we are delighted that he is here. He's going to bring you greetings, and then we're going to start with a program today that you're going to be meeting some new folks perhaps in these programs, and we hope that you will go away from here with a lot of knowledge and information that you're going to recycle back to us. And with that, I would like to introduce the mayor of Columbus, Georgia, the Honorable B.H. Skip Henderson III.
Thank you. First I want to thank Councilors Thomas and House and Mayor Pro Tem Pugh for agreeing to co-host this what we've really called sort of an intra-city visit. And secondly, I want to thank all of you, because this is a big commitment, and my challenge to you is to stick to that commitment. We know that business calls. We did this once 22 years ago, and we were lacking one big hurdle to a successful event back then. Cell phones weren't everywhere. And you are going to get to use your cell phones, because the technology has improved to a point where you're going to need those to be able to try to keep up with some of the places that we're going to be visiting. But the way this got started, as I mentioned, 22 years ago, I had just gotten on council, and I had a conversation with then Councilor Bob Poitashev and Mayor Pro Tem Evelyn Turner Pugh, and we had just taken an intercity visit, and I think it was Jacksonville, I may be wrong, but and I thought that premise was so right on point to be able to go look at what other communities are doing. Bring back best practices, and sometimes it was affirmation of what we're doing here in our community, that we're on the right track. So we came back and we started talking about what if we could harness the collective leadership and brain power of a lot of these individuals and take an intra-city visit. Just kind of go look at places in Columbus. And as we started, that's the royal we, staff started, laying all these routes out, we decided that it should be subtitled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because there was a lot of good. There was some areas that needed a little help, and there were some areas that needed a lot of help. But it created a lot of energy and synergy as we went through there. A lot of leadership got involved in trying to do some of the things that, frankly, government cannot do. Government cannot, in my opinion, should not try to dive too deep into people's lives and correct poverty. Government is the resource. Government is the tool. It's the hammer you swing when the community decides that they're going to get together and try to make a change in societal issues like poverty, blight, crime. So we got together and organized that. I said we again. The city organized that two-day event. And that's where Carmen Cabeza, who was then our city manager, initiated the community reinvestment. I can't remember what it was called, neighborhood reinvestment. And what we do is go in and we'd identified some of these areas that were lagging behind, and we worked very hard with them to try to create leadership within that neighborhood who was committed to sustaining anything that we achieved by coming in with public safety, public works, codes and enforcement. And it really worked. We had a lot of neighborhoods that we brought back. Well, again, it's 22 years ago. Generationally, those neighborhoods turn over as people move out or pass on. Oftentimes, they become populated with tenants and people who may not have the same level of respect for their neighbors or for the neighborhood. So we thought maybe it's time to revisit it. It's been 22 years, so maybe we create an opportunity for business leaders and community activists and folks who are really interested in moving the needle in some of those areas to get together and look again. Because 22 years ago, we had people that had lived here all their lives, and they would come up to us wide-eyed and say, I've never been to this part of Columbus. Lived here every day I've been alive, and I've never been to this area. Well, you'll see some of that over the next day and a half. Our hope is that we'll fan that flame that I know is in each one of y'all, because you guys are the ones that actually do the heavy lifting. You are the ones who are determined to make Columbus achieve everything it can. And we live in an amazing community. It's a fantastic place. I wouldn't live anywhere else in the country. But we can do better. And there are areas that if they're going to get better, it's going to happen because of people like the folks in this room. Societal issues have to be addressed by communities. What we want to do is try to present the palette upon which you're going to draw the paint to be able to make this picture look what you want it to look like. So I do have to thank just a few folks, though. I want to thank Rick Jones, who has been up here already, and Richard Bishop, and we'll list a number of other folks that have helped. The Community Foundation helped us offset some of the costs for this event. But they have put a ton of work into this. This doesn't just happen over a 2-week period as they get ready. This thing's been going on for months. Our city manager, Isaiah Hughley, and y'all join me in giving him a round of applause. My opinion, best city manager. And a real big thanks to Brian Wallace, who's with the Georgia Municipal Association. I think he brought the rain down here from Atlanta, so we're grateful for that. But we had a lot of folks that participated in putting this on. Our prayer is that you will commit to it, that you will keep your mind and your eyes and your ears open as you see areas of our community that could stand some attention. And you're also going to see some parts of our community that we have really taken some major steps, and we are becoming a real show place when it comes to our other communities we compete with throughout the region. So enjoy today and tomorrow, and we hope you will be able to create some very stimulating discussion among your neighbors as we move forward. So thank you. I think it's my job now to call up. I think Audrey Tillman. Is Audrey here? To talk about Columbus 2025, because frankly, in my opinion, the city of Columbus is not going to achieve what it wants to achieve unless we are in concert and in partnership with the Chamber's 2025 initiative. Everything we need, all the building blocks that are necessary for us to achieve what we want to achieve has been laid out in 2025. So I'm going to introduce Ms. Tillman. Y'all give her a hand.
See, I guess I'm driving. This is okay. Maybe not. Oh, yes, very good. Okay. Good morning, and thank you, first of all, to Mayor Henderson, who has been such an amazing supporter of everything we're doing in Columbus 2025, and we could not do it without the support of the mayor's office, his team, and city or consolidated government. We just couldn't do it. There's too much of a lift, too many important pieces that the government holds the keys to. So I thank you again, Mayor Henderson, because you have been so fantastic, and your presence at so many of our events has really laid credibility on some of our projects that we really needed you for. So thank you for that. So Columbus 2025, let me apologize right off the bat because many of you may have seen this presentation before. Some of you maybe multiple times, but I promise there will be people that are probably sitting at your tables that are saying, what's Columbus 2025? Believe it or not. So this presentation is geared towards everyone. Maybe you'll learn some things from the last time you saw it, or maybe for the very first time you're like, wow, this is a really important initiative, and let me find my way in to support this. I don't think I'm doing something right. Am I driving? You're driving. Oh, well, no wonder. Okay. I'm just pushing and nothing's happening. Okay, for a bit of history, the Columbus 2025 initiative was born out of another initiative now 5 years ago called the Regional Prosperity Initiative. And that was a group of citizens that was chaired by Jimmy Yancey, by Jackie Lowe, and myself as tri-chairs. And the purpose of the Regional Prosperity Initiative was to increase prosperity, reduce poverty, and increase our quality of life for all citizens. Very simple. We went about doing research. We did research in the community. We took a really hard look at our community and our citizens, and we found the good, the bad, and the ugly with our research when it came back. And we have wonderful community response, which is our way here in Muskogee County. We have wonderful investment from the community. And we did find that we do some things phenomenally compared to our peers, phenomenally, like our charitable giving, our investment by the community in their time and their talents. But we also found that we really had some challenges. We had some challenges in the way of poverty. We've got a real poverty problem in this area. You'll see it today or tomorrow, but it's here, and it came out in those numbers. We had some challenges with education. We had some challenges with growth of business and just growing the area. And so we asked the questions because we wanted to know the answers. We wanted to know the answers because we wanted to address those issues squarely. So once we had all the data back from the Prosperity Initiative, we moved forward with that initiative and made it bigger, more inclusive of different areas throughout the region. And we began to tackle all of those things that presented themselves as opportunities by way of our research with the Regional Prosperity Initiative. And with that was born Columbus 2025. Because what we said was these issues, they may not be erased, but they will be impacted by 2025 for the good of this community. And we're well on our way to doing that. So 5 action areas were born out of Columbus 2025. And these are the things we want to tackle head on. If they're good, we want to make them better. If they're not good, we want to make them good. So targeted economic growth, enterprising culture, That was one of the things that came out of the research from Regional Prosperity Initiative. You know, this community, look at some of the major employers. They were born out of an idea in somebody's house, somebody's basement, even Aflac, even Total Systems. Small ideas that became enormous because there was an entrepreneurial atmosphere in this town. And what we found in our research was that that's diminished some. There's not the thought that there is an entrepreneurial environment that this region supports. So we wanted to tackle that. Talented and educated people, gotta have that. Because we can go out and get all of the industry that we want. And if we don't have the people here to fill those jobs and perform at the levels that companies expect and businesses expect, all our effort was in vain. So that's a critical one. In my opinion, that's the linchpin that's holding all of Columbus 2025 together. Vibrant and connected places. That was a new one that snuck up on me. I'm not a millennial, so riding my bike to work or having beautiful landscapes or all that's not on my list. But hey, it's on some people's. Young people, well, all of us want a beautiful place to live. But for young people, they want it accessible in a way that they can get around in ways that maybe I won't, maybe you won't, Cedric, but they want it. So we want to answer that. That's a desire, we want to meet that need. And cohesive image and identity. We all know Columbus is a little secret gem here in Southwest Georgia, but we haven't been great about telling that story. We just haven't. I mean, we go about our lives, we have a great quality of life, we feel relatively safe and prosperous, but how many people outside of Columbus or this area in Alabama or Georgia know what a great place this is to live and work and raise a family and have a quality of life? So cohesive image and identity is one of the things that we are focusing on as well. So I'm going to break them down just really quickly so you'll know a little bit more about what's going on in each area. For targeted economic growth, we had some objectives. And targeted means just that, targeted. We're still with the Economic Development Authority going out and seeking businesses and industries from you name it. But what we wanted to do was to specifically target industries that we think we can have be very successful here in Columbus. For example, cybersecurity. That's something that we said we want to get behind any efforts to make Columbus, Georgia, a cybersecurity hub. Started the TSIS Columbus State Cybersecurity Program that's growing. We just heard the new CEO of TSIS or Global Payments. Just went and met him and heard him talk about the fact they're moving their cyber departments to Columbus because of what we're already starting to do. And when I say we, I need to stop right here and say Columbus 2025 is not in an incubator just coming up with these kinds of ideas, but we are at the table and in the discussions with other people who are. And then what we do when TSIS or organizations say we don't have enough cyber people, we're right there. How about this? How about if we put you together with these people? How about if we go forth and we plant these seeds? So we're kind of the engineer, the choreographer of efforts that organizations and people are already making along these lines. We're just putting a gust of wind behind them. So for the cyber discussions, when we heard about that, we got behind it. We started pulling people together. We want to tout it. We want to help encourage people to understand we want to be a cyber place. Same with robotics. I don't know how many of you know what's going on in Fort Benning with respect to robotics. It's phenomenal. It's mind-blowing what they're doing with robotics right down the street at Fort Benning. We want to be a robotics center. When people think about robotics, when they think about having a robotics convention, it's big dollars and lots of people. Robotics is huge. For those who don't know, robotics is huge and getting bigger. We want to be a center for that. We want to be a center for film and acting. Most of you all know what we're doing in the space and have been quietly for years. Now we want to do it loudly because we want people to come to Columbus, Georgia and make films here because they can do it better and we have the people to support them. So that's what this targeted economic growth initiative is about. going after those industries and things that we think are going to be the future and differentiate us from the pack. In enterprise and culture, I talked about what we used to be, what people used to feel it was like to create ideas and come up with new and different things in Columbus and the area. We want to get back to that. We want to be a place where young people or tenured people have ideas about industries or small businesses or large businesses or what have you, and they feel like there are resources and support here. There's a community here that will support their initiatives, and that's what we're building. We did Startup Columbus, which is in an office downtown on Broadway, where there are incubation classes that graduate with their businesses further along the line than when they started. We want everybody to know about that. There are great ideas and wonderful things coming out of CSU, but there are also great and wonderful ideas with young people at Spencer High School and other places. We want them to know we're here, and this is a place where your ideas can take root, where you can build your business and hire employees right here from your high school or neighborhood or church or what have you. We want to have an enterprising culture. We want to have places where people can have workspace. Maybe I'm not ready to rent a place in Cross Country Plaza, but I want to rent a little space in a co-op space like this. We're building those. We're advertising those. We want that to grow. Talented, educated people, that to me, again, in my personal opinion, I think this is the key to it all. And we've got some great things happening with the school system, and our research showed that there are some great and positive things that we can build on momentum-wise. We've got a very solid school system. We want it to be exceptional, and we've got Dr. Lewis and the administration right at the table. The same discussions we're having about how to move it forward, they're there, and they're vocal, and they're important, and they're pushing. But even down to birth, I mean, what I've learned, I tell you, I feel like I've gotten an MBA in early childhood education or something. I thought I was a pretty enlightened parent. But I tell you, there's science out there about birth to 3. Birth to 3 years old. We got to nail that, because I'll tell you, if you don't nail that, you're behind. Isn't that odd? But I'm here to tell you it's true. If you aren't getting everything you can get from birth to 3, you are behind. And so this community has got to get better about spreading that message, and we're doing that through programs like The Basics that's beginning to pop up in different communities around the country. Very simple. It's free. It's as simple as speaking to your child eye to eye. Certain number of minutes every day. You can do that through a book, or you can do it just through speaking. Anything other than putting them in front of a television or some artificial voice. That alone, when you talk about the basics and how to move that needle, birth to 3, that alone is remarkable. And that's the kind of thing we're discovering in these discussions about talented and educated people. If you get people on even pairing at 3, when they start pre-K at 4, and then kindergarten at 5, we can move an entire population of students along faster and where they're supposed to be. If we miss it at 3, you got a segment of the population that's behind, and you will always deal with that segment in one way or the other. So our push, what we want to do, what we will do, is have everybody on even pairing at 3 as they prepare to enter into K4. I can't describe to you how that sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Like, yeah, we can do that. And we will. But just that, Dr. Lewis and everybody in education will tell you will make their obligation so much easier by having students ready to start school on the same level. And we got to do that throughout the region. That's part of what we're focused on, but not just children, also with adults. Also with adults, having people work ready, engaging a portion of the population that we believe sometimes is not work ready or work desiring. We cannot forget that population, because we need everybody working who can work. And so there are programs and things that we are developing that will target that population, and just a talent hub, which is a computer portal, for lack of a better word, where people can know what's going on in the city with respect to employment, training, development, and opportunities like that, a one-stop shop that people can go to. Vibrant and connected places. This is super important, especially as we begin to draw more people in industry and tourism and everything to Columbus. We want to offer areas of town that need investment, need beautification. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Coming down 2nd Avenue, going 60 when I probably should have been going 45 to get here, it's challenged. It's challenged. Let's be real, be honest. I mean, if we're courting Google, bringing them down 2nd Avenue is a challenge. And we want to have areas in our city be respectable, be a decent place to live, be attractive, and certain areas that we desire people to congregate. They have parking, they have bike parking, they have motorbike parking, all the things that people are looking for in a developing community. And those are the things we're doing now. I mean, even the Dragonfly Trail that's out on the river that we're attracting thousands and thousands of people every summer, that was a part of Vibrant and Connected Places. The naming of the Dragonfly, those are all things that we're discussing at Columbus 2025's table, because it's very clear through the research that younger people want to see this. It's important to them. So we're focused on that. Let's see. Cohesive image and identity. Everybody, I hope, has heard the We Do Amazing campaign. Whether you like it or not, it's our campaign, so let's start loving it, because it's ours. So I think it's very appropriate, because amazing is something in the research. When we talked about different initiatives that were consistently came up, we went out to raise money for a world-class performing arts center. We did it with funds within X number of days. It was amazing. We went out to redo this portion of the community, or to start this project, or to do this or that. We did it. It was amazing. So we do amazing. We just don't tell it in an amazing way. And we got to be purposeful and vigilant and vigorous about it, especially as we bring in more opportunities for hotel space and things like that. We will have the opportunity to bring in people for visits and to live in ways that we haven't in a long time, but we got to tell the story. We got to go where people are congregating and making decisions about where they will go. We've got to go to them, and we've got to tell our story. And I mentioned something at a Columbus 2025 meeting, and it got the mayor's attention. We are doing wild and crazy things, and we have to, because growing to where we want to get to in 2025, we got to get out of the box. We got to do some things differently. Some people in here, how you do your work and what you do for your work will have to change, because we can't keep doing things the same way and get different results. So we got to think big, and there are no bad ideas, none. So I suggest and I encourage you to bring your ideas to the mayor's office, to me, to Columbus 2025's website. But one of the things that I saw, and actually it ended up coming on television as a story, is a city that's attracting people to move there because they either telework or they could work anywhere. So the city was wanting, as part of their targeted economic growth, to attract people to move to their town because their job didn't care where they live. And that's growing as well. I know at Aflac we have hundreds of people who telework. We don't know where they are. We just know where we've set their computer up. We don't care. They're productive. They can live anywhere. We're glad they live here. It contributes to our economy. But those that don't, we don't have any restrictions on that. And that is happening, and it will happen more and more and more. So I loved the fact that there was a town that was targeting those people. If you can live anywhere, live here. Spend your money here, pay your taxes here, do all that you do here. It was a great idea and generated some excitement. Sat down and talked with the mayor about it. There are lots of logistical things that you have to work out for something like that, but that's the kind of idea we're talking about at Columbus 2025. Things that are outside of the box that somebody's going to think of it for their area. It might as well be us. So we have a lot of really great, aha, wonderful, let's go with it, and a lot of, I don't know, maybe not. But that's the process, and we're actively engaged in the process. So, multiple ways to connect with us. And there are, for those of you who represent organizations, we are now at the point where, we weren't when we first began to talk about it, we weren't at the point where we could accept help and assistance and volunteers and people to help us with different initiatives, but we are now. We're at the place where if an organization said, hey, I hear what you're doing over at Head Start with your early childhood, your Birth to 3 initiative. Our organization has a focus on early childhood education. Might we partner with you? We're at the place now, we not only will say yes, but absolutely yes. Yes, come on, let's talk. Because it's going to take this whole community, every one of us, to fill in all the blanks on the blueprint that we're drawing. And there is room for everyone and every organization or every person who has interests or skills or aptitude or anything that could help. It has to be a community initiative. And yes, we're creating the blueprint to get there in 2025, but it has to be done by all of us. It does. So I encourage you to go back to your organizations, your churches, your businesses, whoever you're representing. I encourage you to go back, do some research, look us up, talk to people, invite me or one of the other members of the implementation committee to come and talk. We do a lot of speaking and talking and asking all around the region, and we're happy to do that if you think there's anything that you might be particularly equipped to help with. So that is where we are to date. We are doing some amazing things. We all have objectives and metrics and things in each one of the action areas, and we are slowly ticking down those. And we will accomplish what we've set out to do. It's not going to be easy, but we will do it. We'll do it because we have to, and because we are set up to do it. So that's Columbus 2025, lots of great things. The thing that I will leave you with, because it's so important to me personally, and I agreed to start working on this even back to the Regional Prosperity Initiative 5 years ago, because we do have a problem in Columbus with poverty. It's right there. We might not see it, but it's right there. And we have to address that, and we are, through meaningful initiatives that aren't quick wins. Addressing poverty and turning some of those metrics around are not quick wins. They take investment and diligence and dedication, but we have to leave them on the table. Because what we don't want, in my personal opinion, would be a failure of Columbus 2025 is if everything that was growing and prosperous and evolving was even more so, and everything that was not was even more so. We can't have that kind of divide if we're going to arrive at Columbus 2025 as a collective community. So we are still addressing those issues. We didn't make them a separate action item because reducing poverty is woven in through all of the action areas and should be discussed and addressed in everything that we do. But make no mistake about it, it's critical to this operation, and we will address those issues as well. So that's my formal presentation. I don't know, are there questions? Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I can hear you. Tabitha Getz is in the back. Wave your hand. Tabitha is the director of Columbus 2025 and works with me and the implementation committee very closely, daily, sometimes hourly. She can give you this presentation if someone's interested in, yes, I'd like for, Audrey or Betsy or somebody to come present at my church or present at my organization. She can arrange that. She can also help you onto the website and any specific or general information that anybody needs. Tabitha can get it. And I also, you can reach out to me via email at atillman@aflac.com. And if I don't know the answer, I can find the answer and get it to you. Is there a question? How do you find Tabitha? Tabitha, right there. She's right there. And you'll give your email. She's at the chamber. So if you look up the chamber's website, she is on there. Tabitha Getz, Getz. Any other questions? Yes.
Columbus and Phoenix City are so connected. Are we reaching out to Phoenix City, inviting them to meetings like this, and hope that they can come up with some of the same initiatives? Because if you look at it, we really are the same community. The other thing is law enforcement. Are we reaching out as much as we could to law enforcement? We have law enforcement officers here because they are a very important part of making sure that a lot of this stuff is done right. So thank you, ma'am.
Yes, great question. We are branded Columbus 2025 because we went through unbelievable exercises to try to think what we should call it. And Columbus is the big fish in the regional pond. I mean, it's the giant, it's the Moby Dick in this regional pond. But the endeavor, the initiative is for the entire region. So yes, we have Phoenix City. Mayor Lowe has been great to come to so many of our meetings. We've got Russell County, we've got Harris County, we've got Talbotton, we've got Chattahoochee County that are all at the table and part of this, part of the discussions. I will tell you that's a challenge. Not so much Phoenix City. Phoenix City's there. They're there, they're part of the discussions. That I guess they can see how they fit and how they might benefit and contribute. But the outlying counties have been a challenge, and I've actually had a conversation with Mayor Henderson about it. How do we get them to see that as this prospers, their counties will naturally prosper? But that's something that we're working on. They're there, they're invited. Sometimes they're at the table, they're welcomed. But Phoenix City, absolutely, I would definitely say they are partnered, they are involved, they are aware. Yes. And law enforcement, that's a great question. I mean, we've certainly had discussions with law enforcement, but actually having them there and part of the implementation committee discussions, we have not. So that's great feedback. I mean, there may be pockets, maybe City Manager Hughley or maybe Mayor Henderson have gone back and shared things. I'm not sure, I assume they have, but having them there and part of the discussion, they are a critical piece of our community. That's great feedback, and we will definitely take that back. Thank you for that. I think my time is up, isn't it? I was down to 5 minutes like 8 minutes ago.
We're good.
I'm good.
Any other questions?
I'll be around for a while, so please, I mean, we want to keep Columbus 2025 at the forefront of people's discussions and thoughts about this community, and not just Columbus, but to this gentleman's point, to the region, because as we grow and prosper, they will also. It should naturally be that way. Well, thank you so much for your time, and have a great conference. Thank you.
At this time, then, we're going to move on and talk about educating our workforce. I want to ask Ed Helton, who's going to be our moderator, to come forward. He's going to be joined by Martha Ann Todd, Deborah Borland, and Keith Seifert. if you folks will come and take a seat up here, we will start the process. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning.
I'm going to give you this microphone.
Good morning, everyone. I hope that we can ask some questions that will generate some provocative answers. And when we talk about education, higher education or education in general, you know, there were some who would put it in each one of these categories. I would like to think, going back to Thomas Jefferson, without an educated populace, not a workforce, but a democracy is not possible. And so what these folks do and what we all do is a very, very important thing. So I've got 4 or 5 questions I want to ask them. And if we have time, we'll open up for some questions for you. But the first question might be, or first question is, and this may resonate with you if you're a parent of a college age or you're preparing your kids for college, etc. When I was growing up, and I'm a product of our public institutions of higher education, when I was growing up, my parents sent me to college to get an education. Now, philosophically, our students, our parents, sending or coming to college not just to get an education, but to get a job. That's a big philosophical shift. And I'm going to start right here with Martha Ann. And do you see that same trend in higher education?
Well, I think the answer to that question might depend on whom you ask. But I think that the answer is still both. At the Columbus Technical College, where I am now, I think most people are there to get an education that will lead them to a job. And that's our mission and what we work on, really developing the workforce in the community.
I agree. I think it is both that we have to take a look at. And oftentimes at Columbus State, we see that many of our freshmen coming in are looking for an education that's going to lead to a career, but they may have a very limited view as far as what careers are out there. And so our role is to kind of help them see what are the possibilities, because oftentimes that degree, regardless of what it's in, may lead to multiple jobs, multiple careers, but they may be only aware of just one. So we really have to help them explore, take a look at what can you do with this degree. If it's in the English, business, education, what are those possibilities?
Yes, thank you. To continue on with K-12 education, you know, we certainly agree that in looking at some of the statistics that kids go to college to get a job. That's the view I'm seeing, and not as much so as just to get an education. We really, to piggyback on what you were saying earlier, is that we pride ourselves on trying to ensure that students are aware of what opportunities they have out there. We start in elementary schools at looking at careers and areas of careers. That's a part of the state requirements. They move on to middle school, and we do the same thing. By the end of 8th grade, they've created, at the end of the year, an individual graduation plan to move on into high school. In high schools, we have a variety of career pathways that students can be exposed to. And again, that's creating awareness, experiences through apprenticeships, through work-based learning. We've created the Jordan Vocational College and Career Academy to help support students in those areas where they can look at college and career opportunities. So we're certainly focused in that area, making sure that students are aware, creating access points where they can plug in into those opportunities and have experiences We just went through the Let's Grow STEAM opportunity last week at the Trade Center, where we sent, approximately 1,800 to 2,000 students, where they had the probe fair. And there were 80 colleges and universities there, along with all the other STEM or STEAM-related activities that they had. So that's our part of our mission. Dr. Lewis talks about full option graduation, where students are, when they graduate, they can have or be exposed to a college career. They can go into the military, and if they choose to go into the workforce, that's a choice, and that's what we want for all our graduates.
Well, Keith, I'm sorry.
Another thing to point out, I think, a lot of times is that students, especially as they come out of high school, really are not sure what they want to do. And I know from my own experience, my child went to school and went through several majors. Both of them did, actually. So a new tool that we have available to us to help students decide what path to take in their education to develop the skills for the job and career that they want to have is a U-Science aptitude and interest assessment that the high schools have available and we have available at the technical college, and that's a great tool that we're now able to leverage to help students make decisions and become aware of career areas that maybe even their teachers aren't aware of, but that are available for them in their area of interest and skill.
I really think it's a relevant question because Dr. Bordelon is our provost at Columbus State, which handles all the academics there, and she gets pressure, we get pressure from legislature, from our Board of Regents, to make sure that we're offering courses that lead to a job, just not a general education degree, and that's kind of unique to, I think, the culture of the academy.
One thing that we also have been looking at is that experiential piece. Regardless of the major, and especially those students who are pursuing degrees in the humanities, liberal arts, that they have internships to see how they can apply those skills. When we talk to employers, oftentimes we're told we want to hire individuals who are strong problem solvers, strong communicators, who are able to work in teams, who are able to do the things that are expected at that job. And when we look at the educational process, those are all the things that are provided in that liberal arts education, in that humanities, social sciences and such. So what we want to make sure is that if a student, whatever the major is, that they have at least one opportunity to intern, to have that experiential learning, to be able to apply the skills that they are gaining in that discipline in the real world. And that's where partnerships come into play, and being able to have that pathway for our students to see, how do I apply what I'm learning in this degree, that it's not just what goes on in the classroom, it's what goes on in the workplace and in the world in general.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up question on that. And Keith, it might not apply. I will apply to you to how you do this. Okay. But one of the key themes, CBS yesterday morning on their news program had a segment on this, on affordability. That's the key theme that we hear out of federal government, the key theme out of our own state legislature when it comes to higher education. How do we make it more affordable? And a lot of that goes back to what is their high school experience, what kind of assistance, tutoring, tuition help, all of those things. How do we make it more affordable? And I certainly don't have an answer, but I'm hoping you will help us work through that issue.
I think it goes back to our programs and processes we have in place through our counseling opportunities, and then going back to the experiences. The students, when we talk about affordability and access to college, they have to know about it first. Is this an option for me? So going through those career opportunities and telling them about those, and then the colleges, what exposure they have, similar to what we do with the probe fair, is that they go around and they gain knowledge. Now, I think the key point here is parents. Do parents have the understanding and the knowledge, if they have not been exposed to a college career? You know, we go through, and one of the things the state is doing that has certainly helped with this is dual enrollment. This provides an opportunity for students through state funding that students who qualify for the post-secondary institution, excuse me, that they will be able to go to college for free.
I'm not sure how much they know. Many people probably know about this, but explain that a little bit, because that is a great opportunity on affordability.
Yes, dual enrollment is this is where students gain credit in the high schools as well as college credit, and we have to make sure that those courses are aligned and they meet graduation requirements. But if they meet the entrance requirements into either Columbus State or Columbus Tech or any of the other institutions around here, then they can go take those courses, gain college credit, as well as gain high school credit for free. Now, there may be some fees associated with that, but we have students, I believe this year, who will earn an associate's degree at the end of their they'll graduate from high school and also have an associate's degree, enough hours for associates. That's incredible. That's 2 years of college.
Free.
3 years.
Free.
Well, it's about
Basically.
60, yeah.
For free.
Oh, for free, yes. I thought you said 3. 3. But yeah, this is an opportunity that certainly we want to make sure kids are educated about dual enrollment. So not all kids need to go on a college campus due to maturity levels and whether they are academically, that's a good option for them. So that's a part of our counseling session with them. All of them have to sign an agreement and go through it's generally about a 30-minute counseling session to be able to, once they sign off, they can then enroll. But what an opportunity that we haven't had in the past and this has been in play for several years now, but this gives students 2 years of college free. And that certainly helps for those students, but again, those students that know about it, are educated about it, and qualify for it. We're still looking at other students. We have a cohort of about 750 students that are in the Gear Up program, and that's gaining awareness and readiness for undergraduate programs. We collaborate and partner with Columbus Technical and also Columbus State University on this. These students are out in all of our schools, but these are students who are identified as lower socioeconomic, and it's designed to provide scholarship opportunities, creating their ability to understand, hey, I need to qualify for college, so SAT, ACT prep opportunities, financial aid, being aware of that. We partner, this is a state grant, and it's an opportunity for students who otherwise would not have identified whether or not they wanted to go to college or not. So.
Thank you. There, what are some of those affordabilities? I know that we talk about them all the time.
I think one area that we've been working on, and it's with the outreach, is making sure that students have completed the FAFSA form. And that's the free application for federal student aid. And it's actually, they can start filling it out October 1st. So from October 1st on for the next academic year. But many of our students qualify for financial aid, and part of that is the Pell Grant that would help pay for their college. And so if parents and students aren't aware of that process, they're missing out on monies that could help support their college education. So we've been working very hard on campaigns on campus as well as in the high schools in the community to make sure that parents understand, one, that it's not that difficult to complete, but I know sometimes you might need a little hand-holding and walking through, and we want to be able to provide that assistance. But because it is a mystery, if parents have not been or have not gone through that process, they're not quite sure what to do. So we've been working on that. The other thing that we've been taking a look at is how do we, again, looking at our tuition, looking at our fees, make sure that we are affordable. And it is something that we constantly review and take a look at, and also making sure that students understand the total cost of education. Because again, that helps in planning and looking at what financial aid opportunities are available to you to make sure that they're covered. Because we do not want a student to come on campus thinking they need this amount when the reality is it may be different. And we want them to be prepared, but we want to be proactive to help them find the resources to pay for their college education.
I'll just piggyback a little bit on dual enrollment and then mention a couple of other things that apply at Columbus Tech. Dual enrollment is a great opportunity. We have graduation twice a year, each year, and every time we hold graduation, we have high school students who are graduating with credentials from Columbus Tech, oftentimes before they graduate from high school. That gives them a great head start in the workforce or on their career and on their education. If they choose to go on to a four-year institution as well. Dual enrollment has grown exponentially in the state. I worked with the task force at the governor's office about 5 years ago when the state budget for dual enrollment was around $17 million. It's now well over $100 million, and it's a challenge at the state level to provide the funding because it is such a popular program. So I just invite you, if you have opportunity to advocate for continued support of the dual enrollment program, to continue to do that. It's been very beneficial to our students. We also have at the technical college scholarship programs. Probably about 70 to 75% of our students at any given time are receiving Pell Grants, so we have the federal funding that supports affordability. Our tuition is $100 a credit hour, which is a bargain in anybody's book. But we also have the HOPE grant and the HOPE Career Grant that provide tremendous support for students in Georgia. Of course, of course, the HOPE Scholarship, which would apply at Columbus State, but some of our students take advantage of that, but most of our students are looking at the HOPE Grant and the HOPE Career Grant, which essentially makes over 80 programs that we offer tuition-free for students, and that makes the technical college a very affordable option for them, whether it's to gain a skill that puts them directly into the workforce, and we have over the 80 programs that will do that, or at the tuition rate we have, and with the HOPE grant, the things that are supported to really get a head start on maybe that four-year degree as well.
And I think one of the themes that you are hearing is that there is assistance to help make it affordable, whether it's the dual, the Pell Grant, whatever it is, but our crisis is how do we communicate that and educate prospective students and families that are sending them that these resources are available. And so if there's one thing you wanted to do to help education would be to help us communicate that there is opportunities. Don't just think you can't do it, because through high school and through higher education, there are those opportunities. So here's a challenge. I read this in the Augusta Chronicle not long ago. They said between 2001 and 2017, Georgia state government reduced funding for higher education more than all but 5 other states. Counting inflation, this is a reduction of about $4,000 per student. You know, I'm a member of the Georgia Chamber as well, and one of the things that we tout is Georgia is the best state in the country to do business. If we can't supply a skilled workforce, is it still possible to have that designation? Well, then I know you're involved in that heavily.
Well, I will just say I'm not sure that lesser funding means a lesser education. It does create challenges sometimes, and we've seen in the last probably 15, 20 years, we've seen the shift in state funding for K-12 go from maybe 60% from the state and 30 to 40% local to the other way around. But I think that has forced us to be creative, to be thoughtful, to be efficient in providing our education. And I don't believe that just like having more funding does not necessarily equate having a better education. Having less funding from the state level means you're more creative about finding your funding opportunities elsewhere, as well as more efficient in how you use those funds. Not that you're going to provide any lesser education or do any less work in terms of preparing a workforce.
Do you think, though, that, like in publishing this article, the perception is that education is not seen as important?
I think they might be trying to create that perception. I will tell you that K-12 education funding, along with the higher education funding for the technical college system and the university system, is the biggest item by far in the state budget at the state of Georgia. So you'd really be hard-pressed to say that it's not a priority in the state.
I agree with Martha Ann on that. We really do have to be creative and be more effective and efficient with our resources. And again, taking a look at the funding that we're receiving from the state as well as other sources truly is an investment. And for the economic growth of our region, of the state, when we invest in universities and colleges, in our P-12 school systems, it is an investment. So the money, the return on that investment is an educated workforce, engaged citizens. So the payoff is phenomenal when you look at what is invested. Now, again, it is a challenge if those budgets are cut. How do we continue to provide the high-quality education? And we're strongly committed to doing that. But again, I think we have to have that mindset of this truly is an investment in the human capital of our area, and businesses come to areas where there's strong educational systems. And so not only does it have an impact on the community right now, but it also has an impact on drawing new businesses into the area.
Yeah, certainly we have a number of conversations with regards to the budget, and when they tighten the budget, we have to tighten our budget, but still provide that quality education for all our students. It's important to ensure that our students have those 21st century skills. We want our kids in the K-12 population to be exposed to those high quality opportunities. We talk about if the skilled workforce is not a key component in what we're focusing on, you've talked about it quite a bit, and we have with this Columbus 2025, and making sure we have a viable community and allowing students to be a part of that and see that and be exposed to that. So it's important for us to make sure that we ensure the budget is that doesn't affect our programming in our schools. So it's a continued focus.
Yeah, I was asked by one of our business leaders recently, well, what is the funding model? You know, and it's an ever-changing model, it seems, but in higher education, there is a formula that the legislature uses by recommendation of Board of Regents that funds the universities and colleges, technical schools, et cetera. And so we don't set our own tuition. It is set for us. So some schools are allowed to have a higher tuition, some schools are not. We're not. So there's a lot of complex factors in the formula for K through 12, and all of ours is how this money is received. And it's not used wisely, I mean, that's really the pressure now, to figure out how to be efficient with what we have and effective with what we have. Deborah, you kind of answered this question a little bit earlier, but I want to come back to it. Because we hear so much about the STEM economy and the STEM workforce and et cetera. Is there a place for liberal arts education where you study things like English?
Well, I do think there is a place for a liberal arts education. And again, as I was sharing earlier, in the liberal arts, oftentimes that's where students are learning those communication skills, the creativity, the problem solving, looking at analyzing, critiquing. And those are skills that transfer to jobs and transfer to other areas, other coursework that they're taking. I think we have to be very mindful at the university and in schools to help students see that transfer. What they're learning here, how does that apply to other areas? So I think very much it's a very important part of the educational process. And in fact, in the Chronicle of Higher Education and the Wall Street Journal, there have been articles recently that look at graduates from liberal arts programs that career-wise, they end up making as much as individuals who graduate from the STEM fields. It may not be right at the beginning, but when you look at the longevity of a career, they do. So it is something to take a look at, but we do have to tie in how do we transfer those skills. We have to also tie in those experiential opportunities for students to apply those skills into the real world, into the work setting.
I think it's really important that every student that we touch, whether it's K-12 or higher ed, really learn how to think logically, reason, and apply good judgment, as well as to apply the knowledge that they've gained in a general education, what we call general core, which would pertain to your liberal arts idea, in a real work situation. So I do think there is absolutely benefit, depending on what the individual's final goals are, how much time they spend in the liberal arts areas might differ and vary. One of the things that we're working on at the Technical College, number one, we do have a broad selection of general core courses that are available to our students, and some of those are required in our diploma programs. There are always requirements for general core in our associate's degree programs, but particularly for our diploma and technical certificate programs, which are less than those 60 hours or 2-year degrees. We're working on developing a technical communications course as well as an applied mathematics course, which will really do exactly what you said, take some of those skills, some of that knowledge that is learned in the general core that would be part of liberal arts, and applying that in the actual work that the student will be learning to do in some of the more technical and professional areas as well. So I think the thing to apply from liberal arts in our case really is that thinking and reasoning ability, the decision making, that helps students learn.
Certainly wholeheartedly agree. We live in that world of liberal arts and in our school system. That's what we do, and ensuring that we have programming in place, and we have all of our teachers focusing on soft skills, collaboration skills, problem solving, analytics, to make sure that they have those transfer skills when they go into the colleges and universities, where they start making choice of what area of work they want to go into. You certainly see folks who are able to do those or have those skills and are very proficient at those skills. They're going to be successful in whatever trade they're going to be in. It's simply because they know how to talk, they know how to get along, they can solve problems to help the collaborative group. And I think business and industry want folks like that more than they want a person that is focused in one particular area. So we are really focused on creating soft skills, teaching soft skills. We do that through our career tech programs. It is embedded in those programs, and we just want to make sure that the students have those skills when they move on. One of the newer initiatives we're involved in is personalized learning, where we are creating an opportunity for students and teachers to create classrooms where they're in collaborative environments, and students know they start goal setting and making sure that they understand where they are from an academic perspective and where they need to go academically. It's about differentiated instruction. Not all the instruction it should be taught to the center of the class. This should be individualized, and this helps with that process of making sure students understand their skills and what they can do to enhance their skills as a student moving forward into the rest of their career.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have seen through the leadership program at CSU and some of the research that they have done, their businesses are very anxious to hire people who can work as part of a team and who are problem solvers. Those two things. So in your family and in your community, the more we can reinforce those skills through K-12, through the home, through everything, I think are going to be those skills that allow them to succeed in the future. Just one last question. Technology has given us so many things that we can do. How can we leverage technology in the delivery of our materials so that our students can take and use that?
That's one of the things we're dealing with and focusing on with our personalized learning. Technology is a big component in this process, but it's not the component in the process. We need to use technology to create teachers to be more efficient and effective with their instructional practices. So the use of the device, we're trying to not focus on the use of the device, but it's an important component in that that's how we generate collaboration and focus on the instruction. They use the device for all of our instructional resources that we've loaded on them. But again, it's just a device. The real effective practitioner is the teacher in the classroom. And our focus is to provide the PD or the professional development to help support them when they are practicing those skills. We're in the very early stages of this, but we're excited about the opportunity to provide devices for our students. But again, it's the use of the device, not just sitting a student in front of the computer and allowing the computer to teach them. That's not what we're after.
At Columbus State, we're also looking at what programs can we offer in an online format or in a hybrid format. And we have some already in place. Our RN to BSN is a very strong program. We have programs in our College of Business. But we're looking at how can we make that education accessible to individuals who may be in the military, who may be working and not be able to come on campus, but are really interested in pursuing a degree. So again, I think the professional development is a big part of that, and we have a center for online learning that provides that professional development for faculty. And before they can teach online, they have to go through preparation because it is different. And they need to be able to have strong interactions with their students online, being able to deliver that course in a rigorous fashion, but they need that preparation in order to do that. So we're constantly looking at ways that we can increase the number of online programs or hybrid programs that we can offer on campus.
Okay, I'm going to give away my age now and tell you that I can remember the first computer I ever had, and the floppy disk was about this big, and it might hold one essay, right? I still have in my home a rotary phone, and I bet some of you have never seen one, and most of the students that I have at Columbus Tech have never seen one either, but I still have it because it works when the power goes out. I say that to say, I think we have to recognize that the students that we have, whether in K-12 or higher ed now, are, I hesitate to use the term digital natives, but you hear that used frequently. And the electronic mediums, the technology are just as intuitive and familiar to them as the paper and pencil are to many of us. And so it is a tool. That is exactly what it is a tool. So we do, as you have already indicated, have a number of courses that are taught online. We make those options available, but we, in many cases, teach those courses also in a blended fashion, where there's some component online and there's some component face-to-face with the teacher. And we still offer face-to-face in most cases as well, because people learn differently. They don't all learn the same way, and while I might like to have the resource electronically, I might like to have the opportunity to interact with the teacher as well. We're working hard to make as many options as possible available online, including applications and things like that, so we leverage technology to get back to that efficiency that we were talking about earlier, to help us do things faster, utilize less manpower.
With the technology, and it also ties into affordability. We have also looked at, for textbooks, because that's usually a large cost for students, on using open access textbooks. And the state of Georgia has been wonderful in providing support for faculty to develop their own materials or to look for open electronic materials that are free to the students. So again, it's kind of a shift, because the traditional model is you go to the bookstore to buy your books, but this allows the students to download a textbook or the materials for free and access that throughout the course of their program. So their costs go down significantly if we can use more open access materials.
Just to elaborate on that, from a district perspective, anytime we adopt instructional resources, they're required to have a digital component to it. We certainly want, if a student needs a textbook, we're going to provide a textbook for a student. But otherwise, we're going to focus our attention on creating digital access where they can access that instructional resource from home, at school, wherever they are, 24/7, because that's what it's about. They need to have access to that.
And that applies to the textbooks, certainly, but you might not think about it, but it also applies to the library or the media center. I probably didn't go to the library as much as I should have when I was in college, and we still do maintain a library in the very traditional sense, but many, many resources are now available. Where I would used to go to the library, you can now access those electronically, and the state makes many available, and we invest in a lot of electronic resources that would normally, in most of our experience, have been in a brick and mortar library.
And I think one of the takeaways that you would have today, I have today, if people want to know, help them understand the accessibility to education, whether it's K through 12, whether it's higher education, whether it's Columbus Tech, whatever it is. And as obviously these three people are passionate about what they do, and I think our city is passionate about providing that educated workforce for our local companies, but also it's hard to recruit business if you don't have people that are educated, can problem solve, make good decisions, think logically, and act creatively. It's going to be very difficult for us to recruit the kind of lifestyle that we want. and maintain here in Columbus. So thank you all very much for being here today, and let's stay educated.
Sure.
Yep.
Let's see if anybody has any questions.
Oh, sure.
Any questions?
I was just, yeah.
Hi, thank y'all for being here today. I first want to say I greatly appreciate your initiatives to educate students about accessibility and affordability for college, but I do more so want to say to the room, I'd like to highlight a perspective that I think is very real in Columbus. I went to Elon University, which is a consistently national ranked liberal arts school in the country. And I don't say that to brag, I say that to paint a picture. I moved back to Columbus, I'm originally from here. I moved back here about 1.5 years ago, and I can't find work. I can't find entry-level positions. I graduated on the president's list, and right now I work at a restaurant. And I started my own business in May. And I'm probably one of the only people in this room right now who's losing money being here today and tomorrow. So I say that all to say that I think there's a huge problem with recruiting talent. And that leads me to wonder what are your enrollment levels and how have they increased, have they decreased? And then on the opposite side of that, what are your retention levels? What kind of students are you retaining? Are we retaining the top level achievers? Or are we losing them to other cities? Because I really think that there's a time limit on how long I want to be here and work in a restaurant and hope that it works out. And then I'd also like to just say, as sort of to paint a picture, there is a huge belief among my age group, and I think you're going to see it more and more, where it's shifted from going to college for an education to going to college for a job. When I have kids, and I think a lot of people my age feel this way, I don't think I'm going to tell them to go to college. If they don't want to, I'm going to say, great, we can save the money and spend it somewhere else. And I think there's a huge growing trend of people who feel that way, and I wanted to relay that if that wasn't already. I'm assuming it's probably already on your radar, but I did want to paint that picture that when I have kids, I'm kind of hoping that they don't want to go. So, but I do want to say thank you for your time, and I don't think that there may be answers to any of that, but I did want to paint that perspective.
Well, thank you. And that is a very real question of how is the accessibility, affordability enable somebody to come to school and get a job. Dr. Borland, Martha Ann, you want to comment on that?
Well, I'll just say helping our students get a job is #1 priority at Columbus Tech. We currently have 3,540 students enrolled fall semester. Last year, our job placement rate was 100%, so all of our students got a job, 97% of those students in the field for which they trained. Most of those students stay in the Columbus area, so I think that may address part of your question, right?
Our fall enrollment is around 7,800 for this fall. It is down a little bit. We're down about 200 undergraduate students. And, again, we're looking at ways to reach out to students. The other thing that I see as a strong potential, and looking over the numbers in this booklet, we have about 30 to 33% of our population with adults with some college but no degree. So again, how do we attract those individuals to help them earn that degree, whether it's an associate degree, a baccalaureate degree, and also look at the placement. How do we get them in jobs? And that's where those internships, partnerships with the community and all of our businesses and industries, getting students out there to make that connection so when they graduate, they may be employed at that business or employed somewhere else in that same field, but it gives them those experiences.
Kathy, you have a question?
Yes, first, anybody hire Ben, you will not be sorry, I promise you. He's an amazing young man. Keith, before Ben leaves, let's let him promote his business to the.
Well, I would love to promote arts and humanities is really what I'd love to promote. And what my business is I started, it's called Muddy Water. It's a theater project this year, and our initiative is that we are not a brick and mortar theater. So we partner with different venues to highlight those spaces. We just did a show at Pop-Up Town, and then we're doing another one at the Columbus Trade Center in November. But really those, as much as I love being in those spaces, those aren't my ideal spaces. My ideal spaces are the ones that are really difficult and not accessible and not easy to put a theater in. It's honestly easy to put up a show in here. That's great. We all can go to the theater. Why do we need to do a show here? And also, I want to, again, push arts and humanities. We do not have enough jobs to support the arts and humanities here. The only place that I can really work at is the Springer. And that's like saying, and I love the Springer. I grew up there. And I'm working there this December. You can come see me. But when you're telling me that that's the only place that I can work, and the River Center, I love the River Center, but 90% of their staff really comes in from out of town, and they don't actually work here. And we're actually...
I really appreciate what
I'm
you're
going.
I get you.
Yeah.
But I do
Yes.
want to honor our time. We just
Yes,
have
I'm so
a few
sorry.
minutes left.
Hire more artists who are
We got
college
you.
educated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Keith, I don't know if you touched on this because I left the room for just a minute, but one of the things that we do in Columbus, Muskogee County School District is Catapult. Can you just touch on that briefly and talk
Sure.
about, because it is the good, bad, and ugly, and I've heard
Yeah.
a lot of good,
Mhm.
but let's talk about some of the things we have to do to ensure an educated workforce for those vulnerable students.
Sure. Catapult is a dropout prevention program. These are students who have lost interest in school. We try to recruit them and pull them back in. We receive funding for them, FTE funding for them, and it's designed for credit recovery to ensure that they get a high school diploma. They're more in a blended environment. They do some work online as well as work with instructors in the school to help support. We have students that are overage and underaccredited, and these are students that struggle at home, or they don't have a home life, and due to various reasons, they've not been successful. We have a variety of, that's one program. We also run programs, summer programs for students that have not passed the coursework during the year. We have summer programs for that. We have credit recovery during the year, as well as during the summer, to help support high school students that may be underaccredited and overaged. I mean, obviously the goal is, if they get that high school diploma, that's one step in the direction that they need to go. And that's a key component. Once they get the high school diploma, then some of the doors start opening for these students. And so I hope that answers the question.
Rick, is there time for one more question? One more, okay.
Hi, thank you. My daughter was a participant in the dual enrollment program, so I appreciate it. That was back in 2007, so thank you very much. I was fortunate to attend a collective impact model training at the Dunnigan Center for Excellence in Literacy and Learning recently in Milledgeville, and one of the participants shared something that might be of interest to Columbus. We are such an excellent area for the good of that public-private partnership. But they shared that their community wanted to increase the number of students that not only graduated from high school, but were able to go. And they partnered with H&R Block to complete the FAFSA forms for students. And I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there just to share with you. I just thought that was a great public-private partnership to help low and moderate income folks get that form filled out outside of the school system, outside of the guidance offices.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rick, one more?
I have been granted permission, so thank you, everyone, for letting me. I just wanted to offer a slightly different perspective of Ben's, because I could be wrong, but I think we're probably about the same age. And I am here in this room today because of public education. I grew up 2 blocks over here in Bibb City, and because of my opportunities through Columbus High School and Columbus State, and now here, I would like to think as a contributing member of society, right? And so my students at Columbus State in the Servant Leadership Program have had this phenomenal opportunity to actually go over to Reese Road Leadership Academy, where they are teaching kindergarten children the 7 habits of highly effective people. So as someone who works in higher ed, I am biased towards higher ed, right, and towards education. My mother is an educator, longtime public school teacher. But I think one of our greatest roles in education is to create contributing members of society. And so with our model now, with increased pressure for technology and decreased funding, could anyone speak to the pressures that education is feeling to create citizens that are contributing to society through these programs, through the arts and humanities, through the different things that we have going on? Because I know there are wonderful programs out there. But do you all as educators feel that pressure continuing to grow to help people get plugged in their societies?
You know, Courtney works with me and Deborah, so a lot of pressure on us to answer correctly here.
I'll give you a minute to think. How about that? Our entire reason for being at Columbus Tech is to build a workforce that the community needs. And so we're constantly focused on partnering with people in the community, listening to what the needs are, hearing from business and industry leaders what their workforce needs are, and figuring out ways to meet those needs. So that's an ongoing thing for us. I would not call it a pressure as much as an opportunity, and really that is our mission. That's our 100% focus there.
And our core values speak to that. You know, we are committed to preparing students to be leaders in their community, to work as partners with their community members. And so looking at, our main focus is preparing students to be very engaged members of their community. We want them to be successful in their careers. We want them to be engaged citizens. That's the whole purpose of coming through and getting a college education.
We have a variety of, yes, I want to applaud Reese Road and what they do with their leadership program over there. That's part of their magnet program. But we have certainly, that's part of our criteria from the state, our school climate scores. So we work with, all our schools are involved in PBIS, which is Positive Behavior in Sports, which is a program that focuses on identifying students' behaviors and making positive experiences for these students and creating a school culture that is inviting and that kids want to be in. In our school improvement process, we require schools to write an academic goal and a school climate goal. That's imperative, because we know if the school climate is not viable, then the academics will go downhill pretty quick. So that is a focus. We talk about it when we go through the school improvement plan process and what they are doing in their schools. And I can tell you all the principals really focus on those particular areas.
Thank you. Most of us would not be here. There are a lot of things that happen in Columbus without the influence of Mr. Bill Turner. And what Courtney does, Coca-Cola, in his honor or memory, gave $1 million so that we can forever provide students with a servant leadership education that sends them out to be meaningful members of our community. And we're thankful for that kind of investment, and thankful that's the kind of community we are here in Columbus, and that is all good. So thank you all very much, and thank you for having us, Rick.
And as much as the good stuff we do about building and constructing, it's also just important to maintain the existing building stock, the existing structures that we do have, and to be able to make sure they're in good capacity. I'm also a millennial, so you see my hashtag, Clean Up Columbus, which is our tagline for what we're doing to hopefully help with blight. All right, so Inspections and Codes actually deals with the good, the bad, and the ugly of Columbus. Obviously, just like I mentioned on the good side, oh, it's going too fast, come back there. There we go. With building permits and inspections. Last year, we had over $465 million in evaluations. So that's constructions, developments, rehab, all those jobs put together, that cost is $465 million. So that's how much value we were bringing to the city. We also, so I see a few developers in the room. I see some contractors, architects, and others. So we deal with those on the good side. On the bad side, typically we're dealing with special enforcement. So you call my office if you've got junk cars, trash in the yard, high weeds, that kind of stuff. So I have to deal with that from time to time. And then the ugly is what we did with demolitions. Those vacant structures, those vacant properties that are left all over the city with absentee owners, deceased owners, and what do we do to solve those problems? So obviously, we work with the police department, we work with fire, I see chief here, we work with fire department, we work with everybody dealing with blighted structures, whether they're burned out. We have constructions like that. You see other issues here, stash houses, homeless trespassing. You've got prostitution, scrap metal theft. Imagine if you're in a house and you have all that old wiring and stuff in the house, and if that property is abandoned, you know, vagrants, people come in and try to sell that stuff. So they'll come and strip that house naked. They'll take all the copper, take anything they can that's not bolted down and try to go sell it. So a lot of those properties that are open and abandoned, we deal with those as well. And then obviously the loss of the property value. We hear people that live next door to these properties all the time, and their concerns about, you know, obviously my property value is going down. What are we going to do about this to help? It was very interesting. I got a letter that was passed to me from Richard a little earlier on property on 3308 and 3310 6th Avenue. Said that we need to fix it, that our community needs help. And one of the best things about this letter is that this was actually one of our first houses we tore down. So that they can see that government is action. It's not like, oh, let's sit on this and we'll look at it and we'll try to figure out what we're doing. This is actually already being torn down. Now, this was dated 9/24/19, and I'd actually gone to council in August to get this property torn down. So a lot of the things we are doing, we are on top of. People call about properties. We do know what's going on. Now, I will say I'll always take more complaints, only because my officers are already out there working. We have over 800 property maintenance complaints that we get yearly. We get over 21,000 inspections that we perform yearly, and we do over 7,000 special enforcement inspections. So between all of those, like I said, I'd rather all those numbers go up because those are good things, obviously with building inspection, but also that people are involved, people are letting us know what's going on so we can make a difference. So that's my unfortunate due process that I have to go through for my demolition process. So if you do complain, you're up there at the top corner, and depending on funding, ownership, and other things, we actually get down here to this bottom right. So those 16 steps getting to you, getting the resolution that you want. A lot of times we have to go back and forth, ownership changes, things like that. Those concerns, we just have to deal with them and keep moving. But ideally, if the owner is there, if the owner's responsive, we try to work with them so we don't get to the demolition. Whether they come in and do it themselves, whether we get it boarded up, whether we work with the land bank and get a new owner in there so the new owner can do something with it. Like, our intent is never to always tear it down. But if that's our last resort, we've been dealing with it for years and years and years, that's the way we proceed. Typically, our big four there are out-of-town owners. Just trying to contact someone. If I get a house and someone says, hey, this house is terrible, we also have a lot of community that comes from Fort Benning. So they're moving from base to base to base. They may not be here anymore. They may live in Texas now, but they did own a house when they're here, and that house is unfortunately fell into disarray, and we're having to deal with it. I can't physically issue a citation unless you're within the Muskogee County. So if you're outside of this county, other than us sending letters and trying to contact you and get a hold of you. Dealing with deceased owners. Unfortunately, we deal with heirs, property, and things like that. When somebody's passed, there's no probate, there's no will, there's no next of kin. Who does this property go to? Who owns this property now? We also deal with, like I just mentioned, with heir property owners, and my favorite is LLCs. It's not my favorite. But typically, we go to Secretary of State and find out that these properties, the LLCs, have changed names. People have changed names. They're dissolved. They're rebuilt. They're a new name. They're now this. They're now that. And trying to work through that maze to figure out who I need to send a letter to. So we try to do what we can. We also started working with Ancestry.com. So when we're dealing with heirs and properties and trying to find out that next of kin, we use white pages and reverse lookup to try to find numbers, to attach numbers to these addresses, because now we're just sending them the addresses and they may be out of town, but we can use white pages and reverse lookup, get some confirmation, at least call someone. Because a lot of times you send these letters, they may not know. Because the only address I have is that address listed. And that there may be a relative that lives in California that does want to fix up his great aunt's house, but he's not notified. The letter goes to the existing house. So a lot of times we try to find numbers and reverse lookup to try to work that way as well. So how do we keep up with all this? Our code case dashboard, I hate that that's so hard to read, but columbusga.org/CCD. If you go there, you know exactly what my department is doing every day. It shows all of our permits. It shows all of our demolitions, what's on the demolition list. It shows all of our property maintenance complaints. It shows all our special enforcement complaints. And that's updated weekly. We continuously update it to make sure people are aware of what's going on. So you'll know if the property is under contract to be cut, if it's been cut, if it's on the demolition list, if it's on the property maintenance list, if we send a 45-day letter out, if we put it on the demo list, if it's going to council. Every step, as you click on the address, you click on the dots or the squares or the triangles, you click on it, and it'll tell you everything on the property. It'll tell you where we stand on it, what we're doing, and where we're going. So we try to keep that updated weekly. It's probably about 2 weeks behind because we were just getting our next shift of demolitions out to council just last week. So it should be updated this week. And like I said, we try to keep that updated weekly. There we go. All right. So I heard it through the grapevine that the mayor was going to provide inspections and codes $1 million. And I was just like, okay. I was just like, that's a lot of money. My average demolition budget runs about $56,000. So someone telling me that all of a sudden I'm going to get 15 times as much money that I normally get, it's just like, okay. I trust him, but I'm like, oh, it's kind of early, because I think it was the state of the city, he brought it up, and he said that's what we were going to do. And I was like, okay. So as the budget process kept rolling along, and I'm like, oh, they're going to cut it. I know they're going to find it. They're going to cut something out of it. And he was like, nope, we're going to stay at $1 million. And I'm like, okay. So we got down to, we found out the budget was going to be approved, and with the help of him and council, they passed it. I was like, okay. And they were like, how soon are you going to spend that money? And I said, I'll spend it in July. As soon as you tell me July 1, it'll be spent. I'll start going. So you'll see the numbers here at the end as we go. But we wanted to target some of these properties, some of these trailer parks that we deal with, because I just told you that my demolition budget is $56,000. If I'm dealing with a trailer park may cost $120,000, $130,000, $140,000. So obviously I don't have the funds to be able to take care of that nuisance. I can't get rid of it. We could kind of get it at the corners and incrementally, but I could not take the trailers out, clear the land, straw and seed it, do what I needed to do with $56,000. So when I was given that was our number one priority, is to go after trailer parks and go after some of these bigger properties that we weren't able to do with the budget before. So we started putting these signs up. I am against the Ds. Everyone's like, why don't you put the Ds on the houses anymore? Just what I mentioned about those abandoned properties. Once you put that D on there, you're putting a big target on that house. I'm telling everybody in that neighborhood that no one lives in that house, nobody's paying attention to that house, and you can come and do what you want to do with that house. So we stopped putting the Ds on the houses. We were like, we don't want to draw that attention unless I'm ready to tear them down. So we started doing these this year, right before we were getting ready to tear the houses down. So we did 25 in the first group in August, and we did 25 in the second group in October. So to let people know, yeah, we're serious, and these are the houses that are about to be torn down. So we let them know what we were doing. We also wanted to let the public know that this was about that initiative. Directly, that money that was coming from there is going to be to tear these structures down. So we started, I told you I'd spend it in July. It was the 31st, but it was in July. But we started lot clearing out at Fort Benning Estates. That's a part of our tour, I believe tomorrow. You'll be going out to see that and see that it's cleared. Finally, we got some rain, so the grass and seed will finally start coming on up, so we can go ahead and secure that property. On August 13th, I told you I took 25 and we got down to 21. We had some owners that were like, oh, the city's serious about doing some of this stuff, so I'm gonna come in and do what I need to do. You can also see if you jump down to October, I only had 10 this time. I sent 25 out again and put the signs in front of them and everything, and we had 15 owners come in and say, hey, I'm gonna tear them down myself, or we're gonna get the owner, and we're gonna do what we need to do. So I applaud the ability, the trust in me to push them and get them to do what they needed to do, but we're seeing that it is working. So we did that, and like I said, as of October the 22nd, we'll be doing the second reading for 10 additional houses to be approved for demolition. So, results. Just want to show you where we are. There we go. All right, so that's Fort Benning Estates before. Like I said, they come through, they ripped everything they could out of those properties, they tore them up, copper, tin off the roofs, whatever they could get that was of any value. We had some pipes out there. We had to call the waterworks to get closed because they literally stuck. I don't know how you did it, but they took it and then the water was just shooting out the back of the house. I had stuff flooded. It was a real bad situation, but now we've got it clear. Another one for Fort Benning Estates. We actually had people, before we eventually cleared this lot, we actually had people living the next block over. There were people that were still living out there in that situation. And they literally had these structures. They woke up every day and that's what they saw. And so we've cleared that out. 11/21/17. I got plenty of calls from Midtown on this one. So I'm glad that we were able to knock this one out and take care of that one. 1438th Street. It's another one we knocked out. And like I said, this letter literally just came in last week, and that's 3308 and 3310 6th. And we literally caught them on Friday while they were clearing the site. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can. We want to keep moving. We want to affect as many of these as we can. And I have two demolition contractors. So W.T. Miller is one of them, and then we have M. Mitchell, which is doing the trailer park. So we kind of have them double teamed, so they're not, one's tied up doing one, one's doing one, and one's doing the other. So kind of my tally as of right now. Hope Pam doesn't get mad. This is my numbers. I hadn't audited yet, but this is about as close as I am right now. Between the Fort Benning trailer parks, you can see that was $192,000. Like I said, everyone says, well, can't you do it cheaper? Yeah, but we're the city, so I have to go through EPD, I have to send all my documentation in, I have to get rid of lead, I have to get rid of asbestos, all those kind of things. Yes, I wish you could take a dumpster out there and just get you a grab all and knock it all down. That would be great if we were not the city. So we have to make sure that we're doing our documentation and putting up all stuff correctly. Because even the caulking, we had the caulking, which I didn't even know until we went out there and started testing it. The caulking in the window frames of every trailer has asbestos. So imagine the time that we had to do to go in there, abate that, and then take it out and properly dispose of it and send it away. So that's why these costs, I'm like, man, it shouldn't cost that much. You saw what that looked like? Yeah, I know what it looked like, but I know what we had to do to get it out of there. We had $249,000 for the first houses to council. 988 Far Road, which we'll be riding by on the tour as well. We started working on that one. That was $92,000. That one literally had an owner. We had a new owner literally as we're doing this. So I had to put a pause button on it. We ended up going back around. We still ended up issuing a citation, gave him the 10-day warning, had to go to court, got the court summons, got the abatement to continue going. So we'll be right back on that one here shortly. And the 10 houses we were just taking to council last week, and that's the $120,000. And then the Far Road Trailer Park, which is unfortunately at Fort Benning Estates issue, we had the person out there with the sewage and stuff running on the street and all that kind of stuff. That was that property, is that last one there that we'll take care of there. And that's $229,000. So adding all that together, out of my million, I've already spent $882,000. And unfortunately, when I went to council, it was a $3 million problem. So I can't say that we're getting everything done, but to be able to have that infusion of work to be able to move forward is what we're doing. And one more thing before I finish up is kind of, well, what are we doing now to be proactive? What are we doing to kind of get in front of a lot of these? We've worked with CSU. We grabbed a few interns because, you know, we are government officials and we try to maximize our staff as best we can. And what we've started is a blight index. The City of Mobile, I kind of flattery and called them and kind of saw what they were doing in Mobile, Alabama. So what they did is they go through the neighborhoods and they assign a score to a property based off it being vacant, if the utilities are still on, if the windows are broken, the doors are kicked in, if the grass is high. We give them a score. We're working out how to weight that score. And then what we do is we give it, we're going to call it the blight index. So this is before it gets to property maintenance, this is before it gets to special enforcement, before it's too bad. We're trying to stay in front of it to be able to predict a lot of those properties. It helps us if there's vacant properties and there's developers that want to come and use those properties and do something with them. It helps us that we can kind of predict where those next problems may be coming from. If we say, hey, if the police department calls and says we've got an issue at so-and-so's property, we're kind of already ahead of that because we have the index to let us know, oh man, we need to keep our eye on these properties. These properties are bad, or they're becoming bad, or may become worse. So we chose Midtown, kind of in the middle. You got socioeconomic on east side of Macon Road. We're also dealing in 5 council districts, so we tried to get a majority of the councilors to know what was going on. But to be able to use that area as kind of our incubator to kind of try it out and make sure that we're doing what we need to do, and if we need to make tweaks before we make it citywide, we'll go from there. So we're starting to get that information. We should be finishing up that data set this month, so we at least have all the vacant properties that are within the Midtown boundary by the end of the month. And like I said, we're going to start weighting that, and we'll get some more information. So we're working on that. We're trying to, like I said, with the code case dashboard, I want people to know what inspections and codes is doing, and that you know where the progress on a property that you called in about. So yes, you can call in 311 and get that information, but if you just want to grab your cell phone and just say, hey, what's going on in this property? I called in 2 months ago. What's going on? They can see. They know what's going on. You know where we are in the process. And if you have any more questions, you're always welcome to call us and let us know. Like I said, I my staff don't want to hear this, but I would love for all of our numbers to go up. That means we're doing things and that our staff is being responsive. So I tried to zip through mine so I could get some questions in. So I'll let y'all, anybody.
Talk about who owns the property once you develop.
All right. All right, so as the demolition process goes, the city never takes ownership of these properties. The city is legally abating the nuisance. That's literally how it's written in the ordinance. We're abating the nuisance. So whether I come in on your property to cut your grass, remove the tires, tear down a structure, I'm abating the nuisance. We are never taking ownership. The city does not own said property. The city may have to come back and cut the grass after I tear the building down, but we never take ownership of the property. We're just there to abate the nuisance and clean up the issues we're dealing with.
So who pays for it?
The taxpayer, with my budget, unfortunately, is that who pays for it every time we come in. The lien is put on the property. Like I said, say we tear down a property and it's $13,000. So that $13,000 applies to the property. That lien is added, and then it compounds monthly, which brings us into some other issues. But as soon as we tear it down, that $13,000, you come back in 10 years, that's $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, $19,000. And if the property, unfortunately, is only worth $5,000 of the actual land value, then we're already upside down. One thing we did do this year in the last 2 years is the amnesty program, where we allow people to come in, and if they wanted to pay the principal, what we actually tore down for the structure, we let them pay that, and we waive the interest. The first time we did it, we raised $39,000. That was $39,000 of properties that are now clear of liens, and they can now be sold. Second time we did about $17,000. The second time we did it, but we're trying to do that. We don't want to do it intentionally every year, so then people wait until that time comes and then pay it off. But we want to be able to let people know there are options for heirs property and things like that they can take care of.
I may be wrong on this. I thought in Alabama that demolition charge would go on the next year's taxes so that it would get paid quicker, and if they don't want to pay it, some new owner can take ownership through a tax lien option. Why do they not put the taxes, why do they not charge you on your next year's taxes for this expense?
I can't quite answer that in the state of Georgia or from my position. What we do is ours. Now, we do work with the tax office. If we do have properties that do have liens, we do try to, hey, let's see if we can get that up for tax sale. I work with David Britt a lot on some of those properties to move forward. So we try to do that, but It's like, how do you get in front of it? Like you're saying, it's like, how do they not pay those taxes as a part of the thing? We're working with the city attorney to try to massage that so that it is included, because we have other liens we'd love for people to pay as well when they pay their property taxes, because we have a few of those. It's not as many as we would think, because I was thinking, man, we've got like a lot of them out there, but I think when we looked out of the, parcels we have, I think it's maybe only like 33 or 34 actual owners that pay their taxes but still have outstanding liens. It's not as big a problem as I thought, because I'm like you, I was like, why don't we just put on their property tax and make them pay it? But we actually found it's not as bad as we thought. So we're working on that to kind of make it mandatory. But like I said, I'm working with the tax commissioner's office and with the city attorney to legally what we can do to tie those together.
Hey, John, first of all, thank you for everything you're doing. It's been great working with you and your team over the last few years. With regard to these structures, obviously the trailers are what they are, but some of the houses are actually, 19th century homes, whatever, and obviously they're severe at the point that y'all embark down this road. But is there any kind of mechanism, whether it's a Historic Columbus or another nonprofit, that can say, hey, we'll move the house or we'll take it? Is there anything like that?
Yes, what we do, typically, almost exclusively, if it is a house in an historic district, we go through BIHAR. We talk to them. We say, hey, put it out there. See if you have anybody who wants to do something with it. Those are usually the hardest ones to get torn down because of the historical relevance, especially if we're dealing with anything in the traditional historic district, anything that's in the Liberty District, anything that's in, say, Waverly Terrace, any of those other established historic districts. We kind of deal with those with kid gloves as best we can. Sometimes it gets to the point where we have to do something. We've had a few. Justin Krieg, I know, has helped us a lot with getting some of the, we had one property, I don't know if anybody knows, I don't know, we're going by the Green Monster, but we have a property that's literally right next to the Green Monster. I think it's blue now. I think they repainted it, but we've got another property over there that Historic Columbus did come in and purchase. So there is opportunities for that, and we would love it, because like I said, if the whole end goal is the city doesn't want to tear it down if we don't have to, but we don't want anybody in there get hurt. We don't the property falling in on somebody. We don't want it harboring any other type of illegal activities.
How long can liens stay on a property before the owner actually loses the property? Or can an owner lose property if they don't pay the lien in a certain amount of time?
We're working, as of right now, the lien can continue to roll. What we're trying to do is do a judicial interim foreclosure. We're working with the land bank to make that a mechanism where once those liens get too high that we can go into a sale and try to force the sale of the property. So we're in the process of working that out. We're working with the land bank because ideally we want to be able to have someone to hand that property over to. So we're working on that, but that is something we've been dealing with.
Most of the properties you talked about today were abandoned properties, it would appear. So when the city receives a call and you go to a home that you find someone is in, maybe they're impoverished or disabled, elderly with no support system, do those circumstances first by any type of, I shouldn't say by, but does the city provide any type of leeway in the normal process there? And then also, is the Code and Inspections Office potentially connecting them or providing them information for resources that can help them?
Well, what we do is I do have a caveat in the code is comply via hardship. So if we know that it is somebody that is dealing with a situation like that, a lot of times if we see a property and we see somebody, like you said, that's occupied, we'll try to ask, hey, are you a veteran? And we'll try to get them in line with House of Heroes and things like that to try to get them working out. Me and Pat Frey are very good working relationships, especially if it's in with United Way and Home for Good, if we're able to transition somebody maybe out of that situation into a better one. So we try to, when our guys come out there, we're unfortunately social workers. We're trying to work any avenue we can to try to help them get in a better living situation. So a lot of times we'll get out there and we can comply via hardship. We have a few properties, unfortunately, off of Victory Drive that we know what the situation is. The person doesn't have the funding. They cannot fix the structure that they're living in, but that is their house. I mean, they don't have anywhere. We evict them from there. We force them to go through a demolition. Where are they going to go? Where do they live?
Yeah, and that process is probably more common in Columbus than people think, and the reality is you guys probably see it every day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John, for the work that you and your team are doing. I think this is a great testament testament to Columbus 2025 and creating vibrant and connected spaces. I had the opportunity with several other agencies, I represent the health department, to go to the reclaim and vacant properties recently with the land bank here in Columbus, and I was interested to know at what part of the process does this move into the land bank, and how can other agencies like myself work with helping with some of those vacant properties to use it for other purposes? Because one of the questions I heard at that conference was, what does the health department have to do with reclaiming vacant properties? And people don't understand the connection between health and housing.
That's right.
And spaces and why that matters. So we're looking to understand what can we do to help in that process, and if the land bank is a part of that, we don't know how it fits or when it turns over to land bank and how we can make that connection.
Well, as we work through this, I appreciate the health department, because on the special enforcement side, y'all help me with mosquito abatements and vector abatements from dealing with rats and things like that. When we get with mold and things like that, we don't test for mold per se, but we check for water quality and things like that, and then we kind of get y'all hooked in. Or if we're dealing with someone that may have a hoarding issue, we kind of make sure we bring you guys along for those. Now, when we deal with the land bank, the two things is we want to be able to bring in properties that we know we can hand off to someone. So if we know that that property is in a better part of town or a part of town that may have two lots that can be consolidated, so that we can do something with it, because the worst part is for the land bank to buy all these properties and then it's just the city's responsibility and they're just sitting there. So the intent is, if we have some properties that we know that are eligible or we think that may be ripe for development, like I said, that's kind of where this blight index will come and help us, because it'll show us some of these properties and we'll be able to put some of those metrics together to say, okay, that one may be eligible, and we'll send that list over to the land bank, and then the land bank will start their kind of investigation. Can they get a hold of that owner and that person and see if they can try to get those properties and acquire them?
John, thank you for what you do. As we talk about cleanup Columbus, I just kind of wanted to wait to get the discussion of demolition out of the way, and then I wanted to make a statement about litter. I was at Les Grove STEAM last week, and a counselor from Brewer Elementary came up to me to introduce me to about 15 students. And I told them who I am, and one little boy raised his hand, and he says, "You know what I hate about Columbus, Georgia?" And I was shocked. And I said, "What is it?" He said, "The litter." And I asked Mike King to go out to that school to interview that kid to see if his parent would allow him to make his statement on CCGTV. We have a problem with litter if we're going to clean up Columbus. I walked Steam Mill Road yesterday and went down into Shirley Winston Park. It was deplorable. All the way up Steam Mill Road, and the park was deplorable. And it happened just this weekend, litter. I've already sent text messages to the Parks and Rec director, but Fair Oaks last week was deplorable. Between Buena Vista and Steam Mill, we had Public Works out there, and they cleaned up every piece of paper, picked up every piece on Fair Oaks. And then I went through there yesterday. It's deplorable. We have a problem with litter. We're going to need churches to help educate the congregations. We're going to have a school district and everybody involved to help clean up Columbus, but we have a problem with litter. As you go out today, traveling home or on the tour, just notice the amount of litter, and let us know how you think you can help us clean up Columbus by educating people and stopping the litter.
One quick thing on litter. What I do ask, we can prosecute, but I need a witness. That is always my concern. If I don't, we'll dig through if somebody's silly enough to throw a bag of trash on the side of the road, my guys put on some gloves and we'll open the bag up and see if we can find an address, see if we can find a prescription bottle, see if we can find anything that'll put us an address and a location, and we will come see you. But if it's just someone, unfortunately, just, they're done with their burger and they just throw it out of the window, I need a witness, because obviously I see that it's on the ground, but I don't know who threw it. But if I have a witness that'll say, "Hey, I've got a tag number," and I know I always pick with Will, Virgin, because he told me, he said, "Hey, are you going to do that?" I said, "Yeah." They'll send me, and somebody sent me a tag, and we had the tag, and we went right over to the police department, ran the tag, and we walked up to their front door and issued them a citation for littering. So if I have a witness and I have a way to track who it is and who's throwing it out there, we'll go get them. It's just a lot of that. Like I said, that's why I want my numbers to go up. I want my calls to go up, because then we know what's going on and we can help to try to prevent that. And kind of it'll get around that people are starting to get ticketed for littering, and then that may help people stop from the activity from going on. So.
Let's thank John for his presentation.